Hi, this is James Fenstrom from Moore and Dalil. In this training session we're going to look at the Xero application and looking at how you correct some transactions and some of the common mistakes made using Xero. Okay, so we're in our Xero demo company, and typically we're going to be looking at reports when we come across mistakes and errors that we need to correct. So we'll just jump into our profit and loss report here and we'll have a look around. Now the first thing I'll notice is I'm looking at my advertising expense and I thought, gee, that looks a bit high for the month. So one thing to remember, obviously when you're mousing over you can see that little underline appears. That's obviously something I can drill down. If you were to click on the account heading, it gives you a summary by month, basically a little report and a graph showing you how that account moves. There's obviously only 2 months worth of data on here, but it's a month by month summary. But if we're wanting to drill down on it, particular transactions, then we've got to click on the number. So if I click on that 6,916, it's going to show me what makes up that. So here's a breakdown of that account, and I can see there's 2 invoices. I'm still not 100% sure. Obviously another thing to be aware of, if I click on any of these fields, the date, the invoice, the reference, or the actual amount, it doesn't drill me down any further. But if I click on that transaction heading, it'll allow me to go down further into that. You can see it's now taking me to an invoice that or a bill that was keyed under our purchases module. You can see purchases, bills. This was the bill that was entered, and I can see it was entered in here for advertising. Now I want to change this. I don't want to code it to advertising, I want to code it to a different expense. So if I click on our bill options, you can see I've got the options to repeat, void, copy, edit, or add a credit note in relation to this bill. I'm going to edit the bill, and basically it's opened up every field that was previously available, and I can make changes. I'm just going to change where it was coded, and I'm going to code that bill to consulting and advertising because that's what it relates to. So I've just changed that. There's still GST. If I update that transaction, you'll see it's updated that transaction, and it's taken me to a screen basically showing what that transaction was like prior to making that correction. As I've mentioned in some of our other sessions, obviously I want to go back to that list of transactions I was looking at for all the advertising. So if I use my back arrow, I could go back one page. That one page would obviously take me back to when I was editing the bill, or if I click and hold on my arrow, it brings a list of all the pages. Try that again, click and hold. It gives me a list of all the previous pages that I've gone into, and there's that one I can see advertising transactions on the demo company advertising. So let's click into that now. And once again, this was prior to me making the change, so if I hit F5 or refresh, it'll update that page now, and I can see one of those transactions has disappeared. Now a simpler way of doing that, I find, is to open the transaction that I'm editing in a new tab. So I can do that by right clicking, and you can see I can open in a new tab there, or went a bit too far, or if I hold down the control key as I click on that particular item, it does the same thing. You'll see up on the top of my screen it's launching another tab, and I can see in that tab it has opened up that particular transaction. So once again I'm going to go in here and I'm going to try and edit this transaction. Now you notice that I've only got 3 options this time. I can repeat, copy, or edit. I've lost the ability to void the transaction or to process a credit note. The reason being is this account has been paid, so it's saying I can't edit too much of this transaction because a payment has been entered and it's already got some details in there. So I'm just going to click on edit, and you'll see that most of the screen I can't change. I can only change the regional code. Well, that's fortunate in this case because it's only the code I want to change. Had I wanted to change anything else, I would have had to have gone and deleted that payment or voided that payment, and then I could have gone in and altered the invoice. So that's the only change I'm wanting to make, so I can hit save. It's actually telling us at the top of the screen there that that's what you'd need to do if you want to change that. Now once again, instead of going back through multiple pages or clicking and selecting the previous history, this time I can just close that tab and it's automatically taken me back to my list of transactions, or the screen I was on before. Once again, hit F5 and it'll refresh that page and allow me to see that change. Obviously all those transactions have now been changed, so if I go back to my profit and loss, it'll refresh that profit and loss, and I should see that I've got no advertising expense in the month of August, but I've now got a large consulting and accounting expense. So that's great, that's the change I wanted to make. Now I also know that there's something strange with that bank fees. That should be an interest charge, not a bank fee, so I want to correct those. Now if I drill down into them, I could do the same thing as we did before. I could see that particular transaction, I could drill down further and make that change. This time, however, I'm going to go about it a slightly different way. I'm going to go into our account transactions. So I'm going to go into account transactions on that particular bank account. So this basically here is a list of all the transactions that have been entered and coded through that particular bank account. And I'm going to search for that amount because I know it's $15 and there could be a whole range of them. I could put in more description, but I'm just going to say it's exactly $15 that I'm searching for. Obviously if it was a GST exclusive amount you were looking at before, you would have had to have added GST to that amount you were searching for, because we're sitting in the bank, and in the bank it's going to be the gross amount including GST that you'd have to search for. So I can see here these are the two bank transactions that I'm wanting to change. I'm going to show you a real fast way of changing a lot of transactions in one go. So in this case there's only two, and it may be just as quick to change both, but imagine if there was 20 of these transactions that I'd coded wrong. What I can do is I can click on selecting all these transactions, and I'm going to remove and redo these transactions. So what this is going to do is it's going to keep the original bank entry that was imported into Xero, but it's going to delete my coding of that transaction. So let's click the remove and redo. You can see I've got 28 transactions to reconcile. Once I do that, it's giving me a warning to make sure I'm happy with what I'm doing. We should see that my reconciled transactions has now jumped up to 30. So let's have a quick look at that. One of the beauties of the bank correct page is it always puts our oldest transactions to the top. So if I'm fixing something that's relating back in time, as I'm doing here, you can see there's those two old transactions. But I'm going to code this even quicker. I'm going to go into our cash coding screen. And remember, the cash coding screen is just a list of all our transactions. And I can see I've got two transactions here relating to Ridgeway bank fee. Now I could I could sort these, or have done even smarter things to only have those two on the screen, but they're the top two, so that's making it nice and easy. I'm going to click account here and I'm going to type in interest expense. And you'll see as I enter this, because I've selected both of these transactions, it's automatically coded all the ones I've selected. So if I had 20 transactions here, I can code 20 transactions at once. So I'm going to scroll down now and save and reconcile. It's now reconciled those two transactions. I'm back to having 28 transactions in the system. That looks good. And if I was to jump into my reports again, profit and loss, I should see that I now have no bank fees, but I have two amounts of interest expense across the period. So once again, that's a real fast way of removing a whole lot of transactions, recoding and putting them into the system. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of that quick session on making corrections. Okay, so that's the end of this session. We do have another session where we will run through a lot of common mistakes and errors that people make using Xero, so have a look out for that section.